Hey there YouTube, Wrestling Optimus here, back with another action figure review. It's time for Clash of Champions Gold Rush, where every championship is on the line. Well, sort of. On the pre-show, we found out that both the Bayley vs. Nikki Cross and women's tag team title matches were cancelled. If I had to speculate, I'd say it probably has something to do with the rumored COVID outbreak at the Performance Center recently. Luckily, it's precisely when their backs are against the wall that WWE tends to do some of their best work. We'll have to see if they manage to pull it off again. As always, if you're new here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more pro wrestling and action figure content. Right now though, we're headed into the Thunderdome! So for a review and some fantasy booking, let's take it over to the action figures. Due to the announced changes, the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match is bumped to the pre-show. Despite their recent tension, Lince Dorado and Kalisto represent Lucha House Party, while Gran Metalik is at ringside. Even if he trusted Kalisto, the heels isolate Lince for much of the match so he can't make the tag. When he finally does, Kalisto runs wild, then joins Dorado for some double team maneuvers. It finally looks like he put his ego aside for the good of the team. Unfortunately, it's not enough. Lince is knocked over the barricades as Cesaro gives Kalisto the big swing. Nakamura adds a Kinshasa to pick up the win. He and Cesaro are the first to retain their titles, which they take back to the Champions Lounge. The big box of new figures came, which means I have a Cesaro now. This is from 2014, when he was teaming with Tyson Kidd, hence the armband. It's decent for a basic. You'll also see my new Jimmy and Jey Uso later on in the video. The main show starts off with the Intercontinental Championship Triple Threat Ladder match. Early on, Jeff and AJ fight on top of a ladder until Jeff gets knocked off. Sammy gives AJ a suplex through a ladder, finding himself alone in the ring for the first time. He does a stereotypical slow climb before he's stopped. While AJ is still out, Hardy takes a haluva kick into the virtual crowd, giving Sammy another opportunity, but this time, when he goes to climb, AJ throws a mini ladder at him. Once again, Jeff and AJ fight on top of a ladder, but this time they both tumble off, leaving Sammy alone for a third time. While he's on the ladder, Hardy tries to tip it over and accidentally hits AJ with it instead. On the outside, Zayn sets up a ladder bridge spanning from the ring apron to the announcer's table. There's a slight botch here, but he ends up lying on it himself as Jeff climbs a second ladder. Hardy nails Sammy with a textbook swanton bomb, crashing through the ladder with an epic crunch. Jeff gets back in the ring to fight with AJ while Sammy finds a pair of handcuffs. He puts one end through Jeff's ear piercing and attaches the other end to a ladder. Then, he tries to handcuff Styles to the ring rope, but in the struggle, they end up handcuffed together. When Styles goes to climb the ladder, he realizes this and attempts to haul Sammy up with him in a fireman's carry. Jeff enters the ring with his ear still attached to a ladder and starts attacking AJ. In the chaos, Sammy pulls the key from his mouth and frees himself, then cuffs AJ to the bottom of the ladder. Sammy climbs up, laughing like a madman, grabs both belts, and claims the title of Undisputed Intercontinental Champion. As a final FU, Zayn places the handcuff keys on top of the ladder where Styles can't reach. Up on the stage, Kayla Braxton asks how it feels to recapture the Intercontinental title. Sammy corrects her and says he didn't recapture anything. The title was his all along. Damn right, Sammy. First of all, that match was awesome. It's hard to come up with a unique finish to a match we've already seen a million times before, yet somehow WWE found a way to give us a new ending. They also did what was best for the story. Sammy won back the title he never lost, but in typical underhanded fashion. Now, he can hold it over people's heads while being the annoying little weasel he was born to play. Plus, in doing so, combined with Cesaro and Shinsuke's win earlier, my fantasy booking for a new League of Nations is coming together perfectly. Oh, and I'd just like to point out that Jeff was wearing the same outfit as my figure of him. On the pre-show, R-Truth interrupted the panel dressed as a prospector of some kind because of the show's Gold Rush tagline. We find him backstage, still dressed that way. He gets lost and stumbles into the referee's room before realizing where he is and turning to leave. That's when we see Drew Gulak warming up in the background, although for what, I have no idea. He rolls up Truth right in front of the ref to become the new 24/7 champ. Next, we get the Raw Women's Championship match between Asuka and Zelina Vega. In kayfabe, Vega is a rookie taking on one of the best in the world. Fittingly, Asuka doesn't take her seriously in the early going. Zelina scouted her opponent like a veteran, though, and targets Asuka's injured arm with a variety of submission holds. But it's not enough, as Asuka reverses a pin attempt into the Asuka lock. Zelina taps out, and Asuka also retains her title. Afterwards, Asuka has an interview in the ring with Charlie Caruso. She says, "Zelina is like a firecracker, small yet dangerous," but she was not ready for Asuka. She extends her hand to Vega, who refuses at first, then she bows in respect. However, when Asuka goes to return the gesture, Zelina kicks her in the gut and slams her to the mat. Asuka screams at her in Japanese as Vega slinks away up the ramp. With Becky and Charlotte still out for the foreseeable future, and Sasha and Bayley tied up in their own feud, I think the only logical fantasy booking for Asuka is a program with Shayna Baszler. It doesn't even have to be all that different from Shayna's brutal feud with Kairi Sane back in NXT. In fact, you can play off that by having Asuka try to avenge her friend's past treatment at the hands of Shayna. Ricochet accompanies Apollo Crews, and MVP accompanies Bobby Lashley to the ring as they battle for the United States Championship. MVP trash talks Apollo throughout the match. I really wish Apollo had more charisma because he's got the look and a killer moveset. Case in point, his standing moonsault and shooting star press, and his frog splash. The only thing holding him back is a more likable personality. Unfortunately, that's also the one thing you can't really teach. This is a decent filler match which ends with Crews predictably tapping out to the Hurt Lock. In what's becoming a theme, Bobby Lashley retains his United States Championship. During the pre-show, Angel Garza said that Zelina Vega was always blaming him for everything that went wrong with their team. Now that she's gone, he and Andrade are closer than ever. They certainly seem friendlier as they make their way down the ramp. The Street Profits, meanwhile, come out to their usual shower of solo cups. What's unusual, however, is the way Andrade and Garza are suddenly working so well together. They employ classic tag team psychology, cutting off the ring and using frequent tags to stay fresh. Montez Ford is thrown off by this and struggles to get going. Finally, Dawkins gets the hot tag and cleans house. Later, Garza hits Montez with a beautiful Spanish fly off the top rope, but it only gets a 2 count. Then everything goes wrong. Garza knees Montez in the face and somehow injures his leg. The ref throws up an X as he tags in Andrade and rolls to the outside. Dawkins tags in and hits Andrade with a spinebuster, but even though Andrade clearly kicks out, the ref counts 3 and calls for the bell. Everyone looks confused. Dawkins breaks character and acts pissed rather than happy that he just won. I'm still not sure if this was the intended outcome. Either way, the Street Profits retain their Raw Tag Team Championships. We get a quick promo that says we're getting another draft in 2 weeks. Cool. Kayla Braxton runs into the new 24/7 champ, Drew Gulak. He addresses my earlier question, saying that even though he didn't have a match tonight, he likes to stay loose. Besides, his motto is, always be alert, so when he saw R-Truth with his guard down, he seized the moment. While he's dedicating the win to his friend Akira Tozawa, who he also thinks was eaten by a shark last week, R-Truth sneaks up from behind. He knocks Gulak over the head with a pan and takes his baby back. As he runs away, he yells, "You coulda had a V8! Never changed, Truth." Despite her match being cancelled, Bayley comes out with a chair in hand to address the WWE Universe. She sets it up in the ring and uses it to display her championship. She sarcastically says it sucks that Nikki had to forfeit because she isn't medically able to compete. Bayley even got new gear for tonight. But since she's such a role model, she's issuing an open challenge to any woman in the back who wants a shot at her title. After only a few seconds, though, she gives up and tells the ref to declare her the winner. Suddenly, Asuka's music plays. The Empress makes her way down and the ref calls for the bell. Interestingly, because of this surprise, Bayley is literally not ready for Asuka. She distracts herself yelling at Michael Cole and eats a backstabber. Over by commentary, she grabs the chair and smashes it across Asuka's back, causing the DQ. Technically, she loses the match, but she retains her championship. Out of nowhere, Sasha Banks nails Bayley from behind with a chair of her own. While still holding her neck brace, she lays into her former best friend. but her injuries are too much and she's beaten back. Bayley finds a kendo stick and looms over Banks before getting her legs kicked out from under her. Sasha grabs the kendo stick and wails on Bayley until she powders out and scurries up the ramp. The boss stands tall. Up next is the ambulance match. Mike Rome clarifies the rules beforehand, saying that both doors must be shut in order to win. Drew lays right into Randy at the bell with big chops, then hits him on his injured jaw and goes down. Orton lines up for a punt when suddenly the Big Show grabs his leg. He pulls Randy out and chokeslams him through the announcer's table, then walks away. McIntyre drags Randy over to the ambulance and slams his face against the back of it. He opens a side hatch and pulls out a red steel chair with a plus sign on it? To quote Samoa Joe, what kind of an ambulance is this? Orton counters, then drives that chair into McIntyre's jaw. They both brawl into the back of the ambulance, but neither man can get both doors closed. Randy drags Drew to the front cabin only to catch a Glasgow kiss, stunning him. McIntyre lines up a Claymore kick, but Orton ducks out of the way. Drew kicks off the ambulance door and hurts his knee in the process. Together they stumble into what appears to be catering. Christian comes out of nowhere and throws Randy through a food table before disappearing just like the Big Show. Samoa Joe with another great line. Randy Orton, this is your life. Back at the ambulance, the two men fight under the hood. Then, Randy slams Drew through the windshield. You can see his back covered in huge red scars from this. They keep moving up to the roof where Randy knocks Drew off the back. He smiles only to turn around into a Shawn Michaels sweet chin music. HBK casually pushes Orton off the side and gives him a suck it. Drew picks up the Viper's now lifeless body, but just as he's about to throw him in the ambulance, Randy hits him with an RKO. He stuffs McIntyre in the back and gets the first door closed, but as he's shutting the second, Drew sticks his hand out and blocks it. They fight outside until Drew finally hits the Claymore and dumps Randy into the ambulance. It's not over though. Drew dangles Orton's head out the back and gives it a punt for good measure. Then he closes the doors to seal the victory and retain his WWE Championship. In one final shot, the ref tells the ambulance to drive off, but it doesn't move. When he checks on the driver, it's Ric Flair wearing a fancy suit. He says, "I promise not to break the speed limit. Woo!" and drives off. First of all, just like the opening match, that one was also amazing. Second, they seriously just came out with the Wreckin' Ambulance right before this pay-per-view, and then caused almost all the same damage that you can do to the toy in the match. The only thing they didn't do was break through the roof, so my fantasy booking would be for the Shawn Michaels spot to happen sooner. Then, have Keith Lee surprise Randy on the roof with a spirit bomb that puts him through it. That could even be how Drew wins the match, which sets up their feud because Drew can say, "I didn't need your help." Finally, it's time for our main event. Both men come out shirtless with their Samoan tattoos on full display. Jey Uso is wearing a Polynesian lei. They start by sizing each other up, somewhat respectfully. When Jey slips out of the ring for a second, Roman mocks him. "How you gonna be a chief if you can't even stay on the island?" Predictably, Reigns controls the bulk of the match. Even when Jey gets in a flurry of offense, it only seems to piss off Roman more, such as when Jey hits a super kick and a big splash, only for Roman to give him a low blow while kicking out. Reigns hits a spear and demands that Jey acknowledge him as the tribal chief. He refuses. Reigns hits another spear and holds Jey's face into the camera saying, "That's my camera. This is my WWE. Now tell the whole world that I'm the head of the table." Jey simply responds, "Not today, Us." So Paul Heyman yells, "You are my tribal chief," to which Reigns replies, "I don't want you to tell me, I need him to acknowledge me." This is a brilliant moment. It always seemed like Heyman had at least some control over Brock Lesnar, but clearly he has absolutely no control over Roman. The great Paul Heyman is nothing more than a hired goon. Reigns proceeds to beat the hell out of Jey until referee Charles Robinson steps in. But Roman scolds him and threatens not only to beat him too, but have him fired if he gets in Roman's way again. As Reigns deals a series of elbow strikes to the back of Jey's head, Jimmy Uso limps out with a white towel. He can't watch anymore. He grabs his brother's hand and says, "You don't need to prove nothing to this fool. I'm throwing this thing in. But Jay begs him not to. Roman pulls Jay to the center of the ring and once again starts to mercilessly beat on him until Jimmy throws in the towel. The ref calls for the bell, but Reigns keeps going. He only stops when Jimmy steps in and says, "That's enough. We family. What the hell is wrong with you?" Holding his twin brother, he hesitates before saying, "You're the tribal chief. If that's what you want, you got it. Just leave him alone." Paul Heyman takes the lei that Jay wore to the ring and places it on Roman as he holds his title aloft. Corey Graves says it best. If this is what Roman is willing to do to his own family, imagine what he's willing to do to anyone else. This was such a great story and a fantastic closing visual. The dead silence of the crowd and commentary played into it perfectly. We could hear every savage word that Roman said as he dished out the punishment, all the while wondering why his cousin wouldn't just stay down, given such a foregone conclusion. But we, the audience, know why he wouldn't quit. This was Jay's one and only chance at greatness, to be the man of the family. Of course he'd dig deeper than ever before and leave it all out on the mat. Nearly everyone can relate to this struggle. Even if you're not a twin, at some point you've likely found yourself being overlooked for someone else and asking, "Why not me?" Right in the feels. Now the only thing left is for Roman to take on the family's real chief, The Rock, preferably at WrestleMania. Okay, I'll admit it, going into this pay-per-view my expectations were pretty low. Things didn't get better when 2 matches were suddenly cancelled. Yet once again, WWE managed to turn crap into gold. This show blew away my expectations. Yes, there were some botches, such as the Street Profits ending, but overall, it was fantastic, and had plenty of crowd-popping moments that totally worked, even without a crowd to pop. The ladder match was insane, and innovative, with the correct outcome. We got to see Asuka wrestle twice, while Sasha and Bayley basically saved the women's storylines. Not only did the WWE title match send the fans home happy with the villain defeated, but we got all the nostalgia pops that actually made sense with the story rather than just being shoehorned in. And then there's the main event. Just wow. What a gripping, emotional roller coaster. We all knew what was coming, yet that didn't make it any less heartbreaking to watch as it unfolded. This is the version of Roman Reigns we should have had since 2015. A true badass who compels people to tune in each week. Now, we just have to see if WWE can keep up this momentum, or if they just got lucky for one night. Alright, that will do it for WWE Clash of Champions Gold Rush. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below, and come back tomorrow for my action figure review of Monday Night Raw. As always, if you found me and enjoy my content, make sure to do all that normal YouTube stuff. Smash the like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus, or see all my best figure photography over on Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. If you haven't seen my review of SmackDown yet, you can check that out right here. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.